go. Hello. So today I'm here with another copywriter, but with another very different story. Welcome, Vikki. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, hi, Mel. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start with your teaching career. How long did you teach for? What was your subject? Did you change schools? And how far up the ladder did you go?
Okay, so yes, I actually it's my second career change because I actually didn't become a teacher till I was like in my early 30s.
Oh, right.
Before that, I kind of worked in I worked in recruitment before then. But I knew I'd always wanted to be a teacher, or it'd always been in my mind. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I just thought, it's perfect time. I was having a break anyway. I'm going to go and try and get into teaching. And I'd managed to get a job at a local academy doing some, at the time, what I thought was short-term, like unqualified teaching work, just to kind of get some experience. But I actually ended up staying there for about 12 years. So I ended up staying at the same school, took a year's break to go do my PGCE. And yeah, it was in quite a kind of underprivileged, challenging school. I think one inspector described it as being in triple X special measures, but just a really rewarding experience. I was there for a long time. So I taught English, which is obviously that's my passion. I'm a massive reader. And over the time that I was there, I actually did quite a lot of different roles. So I progressed quite quickly. So obviously I was a classroom teacher. That was something I always kind of wanted to stay with. I also did one of my favourite roles was became a pastoral lead as well. So I was a head of year, then when it was head of house first, then it changed to head of year with the restructuring, but doing lots of kind of like child protection work, working with families, working with students that were kind of struggling a little bit more. So that was something I really enjoyed. I did that for quite a while. And then an academy trust took over and they kind of restructured the pastoral system. So that it was non-teachers. It became the pastoral leads all became non-teaching staff. So at that point I went into, became essentially it was a second in department, but it was called something like assistant achievement director. So it was a bit more of a fancy title, but essentially it was a second in department. So, and again, I did really enjoy that. So kind of, it was still, I spent a lot of time in those kind of middle leadership roles. I think my heart was probably always with classroom teaching and pastoral, as opposed to that kind of leading a department side of things. But yes, I was there until around just before lockdown. When I left there, I was just going through a little bit of a difficult time personally. I decided to just do a kind of a contract year. So I went to another school and then finally did my last year of teaching ending last year as a lead practitioner of English. So yeah, I think it was nice to change schools in the end, I think, because I think before you make a decision to leave teaching, it's always good to think,
it might just be the school. Yeah.
Might be school. Maybe I've just had enough in this one school. Maybe I just need a change of scenery. And I loved teaching. I loved so much about teaching that I didn't really want to kind of just make that leap without thinking about it. Yeah. There's always that sense of caution, isn't there? Especially as a single parent, thinking, it's a big decision. But I'm glad I did. So the last school that I was at, the kids were amazing. The teaching team were lovely. Obviously there were still some aspects that I didn't love or I wouldn't have left. But I'm glad that I left in that kind of environment because I feel like it's my decision. I feel like I'm making the decision with a kind of clear head to leave teaching. And it's not just because I'm having a difficult time or because I decided I don't like this element of it. I felt like I'd given it a bit of a couple of years of a good go in different schools. So, yeah.
Right. So at that point, had you already sort of started the basis of setting up as a copywriter? Was there an overlap or was there like a clean
break? Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things, I don't know, to be honest, it's hard. I can't really think about where the initial idea came from, but I think it was over lockdown and I'd already left my long-term school. And it was lockdown. So it was when there was lots of, home learning and, chaotic, teaching online, all that kind of thing with the school that I was at the time. And I must have been spending a lot of time on Facebook because I just started seeing adverts for, I think it was a company called Filthy Rich Writer. and they did something called the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy. And I just remember thinking, oh, it just looks really scammy. You know, it looks like you do think, oh, it looks too good to be true, you know, earning money at home and being a freelancer. And I didn't really understand that much about it. And I think probably over the period of maybe 6 months or so, obviously that when you click on something, you know, it's like you then start getting more adverts for things. So I suppose it became more into an area of focus for me where I was aware of it. And then I started like looking into it, and I started doing a bit of research around it. And then one day, I was speaking to one of my oldest friends who he's actually a UX designer, and he's, you know, got his own kind of digital web design company. And he said, well, yeah, that'd be a great, I work with loads of copywriters. Can't believe you've not thought of it before. And it turns out he knew loads about the industry. So that was really good as well, because he was like, well, if you do this and you do this, and, you know, this isn't a way you could earn money. So it was quite nice to have somebody he's not a copywriter, but he works in that kind of digital field where he knew lots about writing content and places where you could earn money, and places like Upwork that I've never actually earned any money from, but you know, those kind of I've never
platforms.
You know, he was like, oh, use Upwork, and I was like, I mean, and lots of people love it. I've never, and I'm not saying I wouldn't use it, but I've never had to. But it was just all new information of things that I'd never even heard about. And so I kind of deliberated. I thought, the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy one it was quite expensive, well, more expensive than other courses that I'd looked at. You could spread it over 12 months. I just thought, I don't want to commit to it because I don't know if it's, I still in the back of my mind just thought, is it a scam? So I've signed up for another course in the meantime with the College of Media and Publishing. So this is kind of while I was teaching, but it was over lockdown. So it wasn't like I was in school every day. I was at home. I think a lot of people were in the same position, weren't they, over lockdown, where it was starting to reevaluate that 9 to 5 and the kind of there was just a weird mindset in the country, and people were like reflecting on things a lot. And I just thought, well, so I started doing this other course, the College of Media and Publishing, and actually at the time I signed up for 2 courses. One of them was proofreading. But it's funny, isn't it? Because in my head I also thought, oh, proofreading, you know, maybe that's kind of what you're doing. But as I started doing both the courses, I realized that proofreading wasn't for me, and I kind of abandoned it really. But I really liked the copywriting aspect. And I know you don't actually have to do, I know now you don't really need to do a course or a qualification. You don't need to do it. But for me personally, I like to feel like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily that I'm going to employers or to clients now saying, look, I've done a course, or look, I've done this. It's more for my own confidence.
It helps to keep the imposter syndrome at bay, doesn't it? If you know that you
have. Well, sometimes I wish, but yeah. But so in actual fact, so I've done the College of Media and Publishing, and I think I probably had a couple of glasses of wine. And I just thought, I'm going to sign up for this other one. And I'm really glad that I did, because I spread it over 12 months, but actually it's been a really fantastic course to be part of. Even though I think, because it's not that I'm kind of saying anything about it, I think because it's an American company, I thought maybe it just looked a bit flashy for me, where I thought the kind of marketing was a bit in your face. I thought it was a scam, but it's actually been great. It's kind of, you know, there's a big community, lots of ongoing support, and lots of really practical advice as part of the course about, well, do this first, you know, practice this kind of writing, submit it to the group for feedback. And it was a really kind of nice, you almost feel like the pressure is off about, because, you know, sometimes I think when you're starting to leave a long-term career, you can feel a bit flustered. You know, I know certainly with me, I can lose focus, and it's like feeling, well, there's a million things that I could be doing. What should I do first?
Yeah.
And I feel like this course was kind of really helpful with that. And then my friend, so alongside that, I'm still teaching, and my friend Chris said, well, I've got a couple of sites that I've already done, but I could do with someone to look over them for me. And so I did the first one for free, just kind of made revisions and changes. But then obviously when he built my website, we put that on as a case study. And then he has another one that's a new client. So he started kind of saying, well, let's collaborate on jobs. And that was my first paid work, is working with him. And then, so it was around, and then I started kind of, I did some other work that wasn't with him. And I felt like that was a big step, you know, kind of, and really, I'll be honest, the main thing that I did was just started telling people, this is what I'm doing. it felt so scary, because actually at the time you're thinking, how can I tell people I'm a copywriter? I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a teacher. But I started kind of just telling people and reaching out to people. So one of the other things that I've done, there's lots of Facebook groups that are about exit the classroom and leave, or routes out of teaching, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I started it was actually really nice to kind of realize, because in the last stages of teaching, certainly in my long-term job, you start to think, is it me? Is it, am I just not great at teaching anymore? Have I fallen out of love with it? And I think it was nice to recognize that there's been a bit of a shift in the profession, and lots of other people feeling the same way. There were so many people on these Facebook groups that were literally articulating my story, different circumstances, but what I was experiencing in school that was making me want to leave. And what I started to do was, because I was already thinking about copywriting, I was in the search bar on these groups. I was putting in copywriter and looking for people who'd gone down that route. And what was really lovely was I kind of reached out to some of them. One of them's called Bonnie Harrington, and she's on LinkedIn. I mean, and bless her, she didn't have to do it. I didn't know her at all. She just sent me this, I've still kind of got it in my messages, this really lovely long message about, yes, it's a great career choice. You'll need to do this. This is a good, and get loads of advice. And I think, so it wasn't really a kind of, I'm not really a one step forward at a time person. There were probably 3 or 4 different things going on. Telling people I was changing, going on these Facebook groups, getting in touch with people that were in that kind of industry. And I think all those things together just kind of created an environment where I thought, there came a point where I thought, yeah, this is it. I know that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, so that, I mean, yes, and then also getting on LinkedIn, obviously, and actually changing my job title to copywriter. I mean, my LinkedIn profile was absolutely horrendous, but just making that step of saying, well, even if I've just done a couple of jobs, that is still who I am now and what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, it's quite a big thing, isn't it? Letting go of your identity as a teacher.
Definitely.
And I've commented before that I started off saying I'm a proofreader, but I used to be a teacher.
Yes, me too. Definitely.
And then after a bit, I thought, who cares that I used to be? I'm a proofreader. End of.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah.
But it does take quite a while because you do start teaching thinking, well, it's not just a job, is it? Which it does become your identity. And when you start,
absolutely,
I don't think anybody, they might, well, no, they do now, but when I started, nobody went into teaching thinking I'll do this for a few years and then move on, which I think is not the case with people now. But back then, I started in the mid-90s. It was you thought a job for life.
It was vocation, wasn't it? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you don't kind of go into teaching.
To let go of that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I probably still do it a little bit now. Although I think I'm kind of turning it around a little bit now. So rather than starting off with, it's almost like a bit of an excuse. Oh, I'm a copywriter, but I used to be a teacher, or I'm a teacher, but I'm a copywriter. Is that I'm kind of, it's that skills based thing, isn't it? So rather than just kind of identifying it as well, this was my job and this is my job now, it's understanding what I did as a teacher that makes me a good copywriter. And so it's kind of including that. And I'll share with you in a second. I've actually just got some work recently where my teaching experience was was one of the top things they were looking for with an agency in London. And it was a real kind of affirming moment for me, because I thought, well, actually, it's not about, I don't necessarily see it as, well, this was my life before and this is my life now. It's actually what I was doing during my teaching career. I can use those skills. And if I talk about them in the right way, not rather than just, well, I was a classroom teacher, it's about, well, understanding young people's thoughts and feelings, and, targeting the kind of clients that I want to work with now, using that kind of experience to reframe my experience. That's been really useful. So it's, yeah.
Oh, there was something else I was going to ask you then. No, can't remember. Anyway, so you did your courses. Or incidentally, in the video notes, we'll put the details of courses that you did, so that other people can put those if they want to. And okay, so you handed in your notes at school. having done these courses and thought, right, yes, and worked with your web designer friend.
Yeah.
So how long would you think it took before you could say, yes, this is working, I am making a living, not necessarily earning what you were earning as teacher,
Yeah,
I am making a living?
I think so. I mean, so the one thing that was the thing that was different for me was because I've been getting divorced and that was done and I'd sold my house. I did have, and I suppose I hate to say privileged really, because it'd been a really horrible journey, but I did all of a sudden just have a little bit of financial backing. So I was able to, I know other people have carried on teaching and working at the same time. What I was able to do was leave teaching on earning a much lower amount, because I still had a little bit of an additional income coming through from other sources. But I would probably say from leaving, or from deciding properly, this is what I'm going to do. I would say within 12 months, really. And what I will say as well is, I wasn't very, because I had other things going on. It wasn't like a consistent effort. It wasn't like I think. I know other people have done it and they've done it within 3 to 6 months because they've just been a bit more organized than me, probably, or they've had a bit more time to dedicate to it. Or maybe they've gone in the route where they've actually applied for, where they've applied for an in-house job, copywriting. So I think because I was freelancing, there is that added element of 1 month might be great, 1 month might be not so great. But yeah, definitely, I would say a year is enough. If you've kind of got a little plan, you think, well, this is how I'm going to earn my money, or maybe I'll go to supply and I'll do 3 days of supply and I'll do 2 days on copywriting. So I think once I kind of realized that it wasn't that big scary thing of, because I registered with an agency, and my thought process was always, well, if I did have a month where I knew, where I didn't have much business coming in, or if I had a quiet week, I've always got supply to fall back on. And I think that's the good thing about teaching is because of the situation in education at the moment and so many teachers leaving and people being off sick and on stress, schools need supply teachers all the time. And I think it was just quite nice knowing at the back of my mind. I mean, thankfully, I think in a year I've done 3 days of supply. And the last one I did, I just thought I still want to do I don't want to do it again. But I'm a single parent with 2 children. And if I needed to, then at least that's there as a kind of option. But yeah, no, within a year of kind of doing my courses and starting to do those first little bits of practice work, I was earning a decent living.
Yeah, and sometimes actually once you do get your business up and going, a bit of a quiet week on the revenue generating front's a bit of a relief, because then you can work on your business, can't you?
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's
it. Just keeps getting pushed down the to-do list.
Exactly.
Yeah. So these days, what would you say your main channels for getting work are?
So I'm having a big, you've probably seen, I have a big push on LinkedIn at the moment. And
your posts are popping up in my feed every day.
Oh, sorry. I think so. For me, the main, I've had quite a lot of referrals through people that I know. Kind of even people I've maybe not known so well, but people know that I think I've always had a bit of a reputation for kind of being somebody. People would always come to me for advice about language, or can you check this for me, or what do you think about this? Because I've always just been a bit of a nerd about books and reading and language. So certainly referrals through kind of just telling people on Facebook what I'm doing, getting on LinkedIn. I've had work through just kind of going onto job boards like LinkedIn and like Glassdoor, and kind of just applying for, well, to be honest, in your first year, anything really, absolutely anything, content writing, wouldn't matter what it was about, just absolutely anything. And then using that process to kind of whittle down what I did and didn't like to do. I've also had some, I don't do as much of this as I should, is to kind of, actually contacting clients that I want to work with and doing that kind of dedicated outbound pitching.
Scary, isn't it, though, doing that?
Yeah. Do you know what it is? I'm not, you do kind of get that imposter syndrome. But again, I've got a client lined up now who I was going to do some work with recently, but they've put it off for a few months. And again, it was so one of the kind of sectors that I've kind of targeted is like recruitment agencies that do teach that, you know, education recruitment agencies, you know, who need content on their website or newsletters, that kind of thing. And I've had a really positive response. Now, I've not actually had any paid work from that yet, but I've established 3 or 4 really good connections who are like, yeah, we will be needing something. Can we keep in touch with you? And they do keep in touch. So I think it's that thing, isn't it, about kind of recognizing that. The most recent piece of work that I've got, which I was saying earlier, which is actually, I'm actually really excited about, was so Vikki Ross, who's on, she's, you know, kind of really well-known copywriter, and she'd reposted something on LinkedIn. It was a job with a digital agency in London. And obviously you look at these things, don't you think, my immediate thought was, well, they wouldn't want me because I haven't got enough experience. And I read the job advert, and it was, I think it said also hybrid working in London. Well, I'm in Leeds, so, but it did say they were, you know, working in campaigns that were targeting young people. So I just thought, well, I'll send an email or send a message to this lady who's the recruiter, the, you know, the operations manager, whoever was doing it. And she kind of came straight back to me quite quickly. And she was like, oh, you know, your teaching experience, we're interested in that. And tell me a bit about yourself. Send your CV and your portfolio. And I just thought, oh, if I send it, they'll think I'm rubbish. You know, if I send my portfolio, they'll just look at it. And I kind of put it to the deliberate, well, maybe consciously or subconsciously, I don't know, put it to the back of my mind, just thinking, oh, they won't want me. 2 days later, they chased me saying, oh, you're still sending your CV and your portfolio. And I was like, you know, your teaching experience is something we're really interested in, alongside the copywriting experience. So I sent it in, and with 48 hours, I had a contract with them.
Crikey, that is
it's doing an email. Well, it's doing an email campaign for a high street bank that is targeting teachers and young people. You know, and I was like, so all of a sudden, I've gone from within literally 3 days of just thinking, you know, I could have missed out on that, because at the end of the day, what's the worst that could have happened? The worst that could have happened was I'd sent my portfolio and they'd have thought she's not right.
And then
but instead, they came back saying, well, we'd actually look at remote working for the right person. So even though it said hybrid, for the right person, we'd do remote. They are interested in my teaching experience because they want people who know how young people, you know, this organization works with big companies who kind of target young people in specific campaigns. And, you know, and all of a sudden within 3 days, I'm now kind of on a freelance contract with this agency in London. And, you know, I'm getting really good feedback from work that I've done already. So I think that's, again, it's just that thing, isn't it, about just reach out. You know, and I've got like a little list after we finish today. I've got a little list of clients that, so I think one of the things I'm trying to do now is work more with clients that I want to work with, or within sectors that I'm passionate about. Because I've just, you know, worked with a national children's charity, done their website for them, got great feedback from that, and I loved that. It was, you know, it's probably one of my favorite pieces of work that I've done, because it was just this perfect combination of, well, yeah, I'm using my copywriting skills, but yeah, because I was a teacher, like we said, that it doesn't just leave you.
No.
And I think that sense as a teacher, you do have a sense of you're doing something worthwhile. And, you know, you don't do it for the glory, definitely. You don't do it for the glamour and the glory, do you? But so all of a sudden, you know, working with, you know, I've done some consulting for a sexual abuse charity, and I've done some website work for a national children's charity, and I'm writing email campaigns targeting teachers and children for a high street organization. And I've realized actually this is, well, you know, I've got this experience behind me now. So 12 months in from that starting point, where you take absolutely everything that you can and tell everybody everything that you'll do any work, which is fantastic, because that's the right way to go about it. You know, now I'm in a position where I'm creating lists of clients that I do want to work with. And actually I'm thinking, well, they probably would think that I've got good experience now, because I've had a bit of validation now. And, you know, so it is, yes, the imposter syndrome is still there a little bit, but I know that's just me, because people wouldn't be paying me to work for them if they didn't think that I was doing a good job.
No, exactly. Yeah. So have there been any sort of big obstacles or barriers or pitfalls?
I mean, it's not really, I suppose it's just part of the learning curve. I think we spoke earlier about there's lots of jobs like Upwork and Fiverr and all those. Now, I did register and create an account. never had any work from them. And I think but I did spend time initially kind of trying to pitch for jobs and things. And I realized it was just a bit of wasted energy, really. I'd been better off investing that time in creating a great portfolio and putting it on LinkedIn or sending it out to people or sharing it, rather than kind of bidding for jobs against thousands of other people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things that I did, and again, it was a learning curve, and it was something that I kind of had to get my head around, was I'd done some work with a kind of big kind of content mill type organization, quite low pay, very dull content kind of thing. Really, just, and you know what? That's fine. It's, you know, it's a probably an industry in itself, isn't it? I think that kind of, you know, clickbait and lots of AI and all that kind of stuff. And I spent ages, because I wasn't very experienced, trying to create these great blogs about things that I didn't know anything about, really. And then in the end, they kind of paid me this very minimal amount. And then we're not going to progress with it anyway. It was like, did some test pieces that were paid. And I think I felt quite despondent at that point. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I should be able to be churning out this content. But then I just realized that wasn't really the direction I wanted to go in anyway. But it was just, I suppose, just a sniff of rejection. And I was absolutely, you know, beside myself at the time. But what I've realized now is that's not really, I like writing content if it's something that I understand the trajectory of, or if it's on a subject matter that I'm invested in, or if I think it's kind of there to do some good for a business. You know, if I'm working with one of my clients and I know that that's going to get them some business, I can see the worth in it. But I think just that kind of, here's a brief, you know, 2,000 words for £40 or whatever, just off you go. And it's just, I think, but it was you know, I'm sure that I'm not the only person that have gone through that kind of, I'll take any work that I can get, you know, doing paid pieces and jumping through hoops and all those kinds of things. I suppose it's just part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose you have to do an element of that to learn from it.
Yeah, definitely.
So if there was one piece of advice that you could give to anybody watching this, what would it be?
I think if you're in teaching and you're considering leaving, it can feel quite overwhelming. And I think that's kind of just thinking, well, I'm a teacher, and so how can I become a whatever it might be, copywriter or an accountant or whatever that might be. I think my advice would be is obviously have that end goal in mind, but break down that journey into smaller chunks so it feels more manageable. So, you know, nobody just kind of snaps the fingers and goes from being a teacher to a whatever, an award-winning copywriter overnight. So what is that step? Maybe just do a bit of research, connect with other people who've done that same thing and ask for their advice. So I think, the main thing I'd do would be break it down into chunks, read the books, go on a course, speak to other people. But then I think the other thing maybe contradicts that slightly is also just take some action, whatever it is, because there's always that anxiety about they'll laugh at me, or they'll think I'm not good enough, or they'll say, how can you be doing this? And I think there's so many people now that change career from teaching. And I think whatever that piece of action is, whether it's signing up to a course, whether it's changing your profile on LinkedIn and creating a little community, or attending a networking event, whatever it might be, just do something and start the journey. It doesn't have to be a jumping into the dark, I'm leaving teaching to do something unknown. So that would be my main kind of thing. Yeah, break it down, but do something.
Yeah, I think that's very wise advice. So I'll leave it there. Thank you
Lovely.
so much for your time and for sharing your experience with us, Vikki. It's been great.
No, you're so welcome. It's been lovely. Thank you very much.